Hi guys, it's Georgie from Mindera UK Foundation. In this set of videos, there's going to be multiple, but we're going to be looking at how to kind of do the initial starts of programming, particularly in Python. So there'll be multiple videos, fairly small, so you can kind of do them in your own time at your own pace, just showing you the beginnings of and the basics of programming. So if you have any questions, do feel free to leave them below. This is the first video of the whole lot of them, so hopefully you'll get a kind of beginner's bit and then the rest of them will follow on from here. Awesome, enjoy! Hi guys, so I'm just going to start off this kind of initial programming video, just kind of talking about kind of the basics of programming. We'll go into some of kind of the initial bits and stuff like that, but I just first of all thought I would talk about kind of which language I would recommend initially learning to program in. And for me, as you can see on the screen, my initial recommendation would be Python. It is one that is used quite commonly in teaching, and the reason for that is because it is the most similar looking to English. So in this nice image, surrounded by pictures of snakes, so apologies if you're not a fan of snakes, that is one of the downsides of this programming language, sadly. This is kind of a very basic. Now some of this is stuff that even you wouldn't have to worry about, but you can kind of see if, else, but it's written in quite a nice way. Now it might not look like that, but if I was to show you something such as Java, and this is why I always kind of start off showing why I would recommend Python initially, this is one of the first things that you would kind of learn. Like it says, Introduction to Programming in Java, and it looks pretty horrible in comparison to Python. So yeah, this is kind of the reason why I tend to recommend Python initially, and that is mainly because of the ease of it. So what I'm going to show initially is kind of how to get it installed. There are a lot of online IDEs that you can use. So you can use something like this, which is called Online Python. Now this is fine, and if you do want to use something like this, that is absolutely fine as well. Just be aware that sometimes there are certain things that might not work quite as well, which is why I tend to recommend kind of installing it. It is all free, and through kind of Python's kind of website and stuff, it is all really easy to access and things like that. So all you need to go to is kind of go to downloads and then download your appropriate one. So for me, it already recommends Mac, which is fine because I'm using a Mac laptop. So I'm going to click on that and I'm going to get it installed. So I'll be back once it is installed on my computer. So what I actually just realised is actually it might be quite useful for me to kind of go through the installation instructions. So this is very specific to Mac, but I think the Windows one is going to be very, very similar. So you get the usual stuff, you get all of the README and important information. Of course, I would say, yes, definitely go and read this to make sure that it's, I don't want you getting yourself in trouble by not reading this or the license. The license, as always, is nice and long. I have kind of looked through this before, but you get the idea. So I don't want to be caught legally. Have a read through, make sure you're happy with it, and then click continue. I agree with it. So yeah, so then it will tell you kind of how to install it and stuff like that. You can change how you want to install it. You can customize it if you're someone that wants to install it at a certain place and stuff. For me, I'm not too worried. I'm just going to let it install it where it thinks is best to install it. It will ask me for my password, so I will just get that sorted out. Not sure if you saw that or not, but basically I had to put my password as an admin, and then it will install it, and hopefully it should be, there we go, less than a minute, easy peasy. So once it is installed, I will then kind of show you, there you go, look, it's even opened it up for me. So I've got kind of the idle, which is basically kind of the IDE, and I've also got Python launcher. So I'm hoping if I type in idle, I'm going to allow so it can see those documents, and perfect, there is the Python shell. So I'm going to open this full screen. So this is what Python will look like. I actually don't quite like it like that, so, and I'll explain why in a second. So this is actually, for me working on Mac, this is the better way for me to do it. So the Python shell, this is basically the initial way, and where anything you program in Python will be displayed. So it looks like this. Maybe I'll just make it a little bit bigger because, ooh, Window. Right, let me pause while I try and work this out. I'm very used to Windows with Python, so give me a minute or so. For you, it should be instantaneous. Okay, so I am back. I had to go over to idle and then go to settings. This is a good place if you do want to change some things, so I just increase the size a little bit, but you can also make things bold, you can change the font, you can change. I wouldn't recommend changing the colours personally. That is just because I think the colours are really useful if you're looking at example code online, or if someone's going to help you with this code. So for example, if I was to assist with someone, I do tend to find it easier if they've got the regular colours, just for that kind of side of things. But anyway, so I've already done all that. So yeah, so this is the Python shell. This is where all of your code will kind of be run, or looks like it will be run. And this is basically kind of a version of the terminal. So kind of when you do stuff behind the scenes on a computer, or if you type in kind of code through the terminal, the command line, that type of thing, this is basically the kind of Python equivalent. So you can actually write lines of code here. So if I was going to go print, and this is one of the first things that you will typically be taught when you are programming. So hello world. And as you can see, the nice blue text is what the computer's giving back to me. So I've said to it, okay, can you print out? And then anything between those speech marks is what's being printed out, and it's hello world. So yeah, but typically when you're programming, you want to do more than one line of code. One line of code probably isn't going to quite cut it for pretty much anything we are doing. Now I could write a really long line of code with some ways to kind of extend it so it looks like it's actually a file in one line of code, but you get the gist. This isn't the easiest way to code. So what I'm going to do, and this is very similar on Windows, which is why I've actually opened it up in this view rather than the kind of full screen view on Mac. I'm just going to go up to File, New File. When you're kind of dealing with Python, and the idle in particular, you do actually tend to use this top bar quite a lot. So if you are using Mac, I would recommend kind of opening it within this view opposed to the kind of full view if you click kind of the massive full screen one. So I am just going to hover over this and actually just kind of make it full range. So this is now my Python file. So in here I can write multiple lines of code. So I'm going to go back in, I'm going to do print, and then I'm going to do hello world. Apologies if you see me type the @ symbol. I haven't programmed much on my Mac, so I'm not quite used to that. So where the speech marks and the @ symbol are, they are swapped on a Windows PC's keyboard. So that is something to watch out for if you are like me and programming on a different type of keyboard. So print hello world is one of those things that you first of all do when you are coding. It kind of was one of those initial things, and it's just a tradition that is typically seen in programming. So this is now my file. So very similar as to before. If I go run and run module, this is basically how you run your code. You kind of come up here and run module. Now you can do F5. That's a quicker way to do it. If I do that, it's going to tell me it needs to be saved, so I'm going to go and save it somewhere. It can just go in my documents as coding example 1. Now, the reason I name, and if you ever seen me save a file previously, you'll notice that I tend to put these underscores in between things. That's because when you're programming, typically, a lot of computers get really upset if there's a space in a name for something. So this is something I've kind of picked up over the years, and you'll probably notice it with people that are into computers or programming, because it is something that pops up and can cause issues down the line. You don't have to do it right now, but it can be useful if you ever want to look into programming on things such as opening files or saving to a file and stuff like that. It just makes it a little bit easier. And this does also pop up in other things outside of kind of your general programming, things such as using kind of Excel and kind of spreadsheets and stuff, and kind of across more general computing. It's a handy habit to come into. It's a bit of a random one, but it can help you down the line. It's probably not going to impact us too much over this video, but it is good to be aware of. So I'm going to save that. Now, as you can see, it's then brought me back to the Python shell, and it says hello world. As you can see, this is my work laptop, which is why it has our lovely office admin's name here. She is the one that's my laptop, so that's why it looks like it's her. I promise I've not hacked a computer. So, hello world, that is exactly what I wanted it to do. Perfect. So what I'm actually going to do now is, hopefully, if I do this, there we go, I am back to my file. So now from within here, I can run as much as I kind of want to. So I can kind of type multiple lines. If I wanted to, I could type 10 lines of print hello world. Or I am Georgie, for anyone that doesn't know who I am. So this is a way that you can then do this. So if I was to run this, it will then save it for me, and then hello world, hello or hi, I am Georgie. Fabulous. And that is your first 2 lines of code. Exciting. Now, one of the key things when you are doing computer programs is typically you want them to be used by someone. You want to take some sort of input. So the next thing that I tend to teach when I'm kind of going through programming is the initial, okay, what happens if I want to take in some sort of information? Now in Python that is quite easy, and typically we are taking in information, and initially when you're kind of first programming, that information that you're taking is going to be from your keyboard. So the way that you can do that through Python is a nice easy way by using the word input. Now, anything that turns purple in Python is basically something known as a function, which basically means somewhere else on the computer within the files that make up Python, so whoever programmed Python programmed something, which this is basically then using those instructions. So it's kind of a program within a program is the best way to think about it. So this is basically a way to hide what is going on behind the scenes. So behind the scenes, when I type in input, it will be taking in information from the keyboard, but we don't have to know how that works. We just know that that's what it's going to do. Now, within input, very similar to print, where I've kind of got these speech marks and it prints that out, I could ask something within these speech marks. So I could say, please enter your name. Speech marks. And that will ask me it will then print that out and basically wait for someone to enter something in on the keyboard. Now, if I was to run this, not much is going to happen. So if I'll show you how it works. We'll save it. So you say, hello world, hi, I am Georgie. Please enter your name. If I was then to go type in, I don't know, let's go Damien. These 3 arrows basically mean that's kind of the end of the file and everything is done. So you can see nothing happened here. It allowed me to type in a name, but nothing else has happened. And the reason for that is kind of twofold. So one, we basically have no other code beneath this, so there's nothing else for our program to do. It's asked us to enter in some information, which is fine, but we want to be able to do something with that information. And the reason and the way that we do that is by something called a variable. So a variable you can kind of imagine is like a cardboard box. That's how I tend to explain it. It's a cardboard box that holds some sort of information for you. So you basically are putting a label on a cardboard box and saying anytime I name that cardboard box, whatever is in it is going to be used. So I'm going to put user's name equals input. And the equal is basically saying this is that. So you're saying, okay, the user's name is whatever they input into please enter your name. After that, we then want to say something to do with that. So we now have that information. We will then have, okay, whatever they type in on their keyboard, that is going to be saved in that cardboard box called user's name. But we want to use that for something. We don't want to just kind of store it and not use it at this point, because what would be the point? We've saved it for a reason. And we can reuse it as many times as we want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a simple program that says, hi. And then I'm going to add this nice plus. So there are sometimes issues with this, and I can come back and explain that afterwards. But we're basically going to do, actually I'm going to add a space here, and I'll show that in a second why. And then I'm going to put user's name. So hopefully what this is meant to do is basically it's going to do something called concatenate, which basically means it adds them together. So obviously if you add 2 numbers together, it kind of makes a whole new number. And that's basically the same that we're doing here, except with words. So we're adding hi space to whatever the user types in. And then it's going to reprint that out. So hopefully if I run this, let's have a look. So hello, please enter your name. I'm actually going to type Georgie again this time. And then it says hi Georgie. So you can see that's kind of how that works. And that is what that plus is doing. There are other ways you can do it, but that is why I added that space in there. Because if I just go back to the shell, let's just run it again just to make it easier. Georgie, this space here, if I didn't add that space in, it would just be smushed together, because it literally, when it adds it together, it just sticks them right next to each other. It isn't too aware of the English or any other language really that includes spaces. So yeah, so this is basically your first Python program, and you've already learned how to print stuff out. You've already learned the basics of what a variable is. So this is actually known as a string. So basically any wording in Python is known as a string, and then you've basically stuck two strings together. So well done, you've done your first small program. Okay guys, so thank you for joining us for this kind of first initial programming video. We're going to have a lot more of these going forward, so do keep an eye out on the channel, and then I'll make sure that they are tagged here or shown here or in the description so you can see which video to look at next. See you next time.